Hello to everyone. My name is Sandeep. I am working as assistant professor in the Department of Information Technology of MLR Institute of Technology, Hyderabad. So in previous discussion, we discussed about that instance variables and instance methods. And also we discussed the static variables, as well as we discussed that the class members. Now we are going to discuss the static methods, and also with that how we are going to call the static methods, which is from another method. And finally, the differences between the class method, static method, and instance method. Right? First, what is the static method? Generally, the static method is nothing but an utility method which is used to perform a task in an isolation. Right? In an isolation. So, the static methods in Python are similar to in Java or C++ programming languages. That means in Java we have the two types of methods. One is instance method and static methods. So that instance method is nothing but that class level method. We can also consider that static methods is what? Class level methods in Java. For here, a static method is bound to the class and not to the object of the class. Yes, as we discussed in previous discussion, that instance method belongs to the object. We can also say instance variables and instance method, which we can consider instance members. That instance members is object level members. Similarly here, the static method is the class level, or it is bound to the class but not the object. That means it is considered as a class level method. So that's why we can call that static method using the class name. And that static method does not have access to the class and instance variables. That means the static method could not access that instance variables because it does not, because we are going to pass the parameter. We are not going to pass any parameter into the static method. Generally, in the instance method and the class method, there is two parameters we have to pass. One is, for example, if you take that instance method, so def m1, and first parameter must and should be self parameter. The self represents the current class object. And for example, if you take the class method, the first parameter must and should be CLS, which we can say class. So that's why we cannot modify the instance variables or the class variables of through this static method, because the static method could not access or could not modify the instance variables. And also, if you want to declare the static method, then you must and should use @static method decorator. @static method decorator. See, for example, here that m1 method is a static method. How we can say means, upon that one we define decorator, that is @static method. @static method, right? So whenever we define @static method decorator upon that method, then that method is nothing but a static method. This is the declaration of the static method. Next, how can we call? A call means by using the class name. Of course, we can also access the static methods using object of that class. For example, here see, this is the class test, and within the class test we define that one static method, that is the decorator. Now m1 method is the what? Static method. Now here two variables is defined, a equals to 10 and b equals to 100, which we can consider this is local variables, and we are going to print the two variable values, then calling that one m1 method, which is the static method by using class name, right? So let's say an example, class test. Now @static method def. So no need to pass any parameter into the static methods. For example, if the method is instance method, then we have to pass what? Self variable. So our self parameter. Or for example, if you want to define an class method, then you have to pass the CLS parameter is the first parameter. Anyway, a equals to 10, right? So, and we have to give enunciation. A equals to 10, b equals to 20. Now print a plus b. So now the M1 method is completed and class is also completed. Now how can we call that M1 method of, which is static method? By using class name. So test dot M1 method, right? Now we'll run this program. So Python space sample dot py, right? So the path is different. Desktop. Now Python sample.py, right? So that, okay. So here that error is we define some different path, that's why. Okay. So here a plus b, whenever we add that values, then it will be give the result of sum, right? This is the static method. Okay. Next, how can we call the static methods from another method? How can we call a static methods from another method? So the calling a static method from another static method of the class. Yes, it is possible. It is possible. Generally, for example, if you take a class that is test, now def m1, that is instance method, and def m2, this is static method, for example. Now if you try to call that m2 method, which is the static method, from m1, then is it possible? Let me check. But before going to check that one, first I will define two static methods, that is m1 method and m2 method, in one class of the same class. That should be same class. Now that m1 method I am going to call from m2 method. M1 method is a static method and m2 method is also a static method. But I am calling that m1 method from which method? M2 method. That is another static method of the same class. Okay. So let me try an example. Now see. So class test. Now @ static method. Now def m1, right? So print hello. Similarly, another static method. So static method decorator. Next def m2, print hi, right? Now before that I am going to try to call that m1 method. M1 method. How can I am accessing? By using class name, because of static methods can access using class name, right? Now see test dot m2 method. Now let me see first what will be happen here. First m2 method, for example here what we are calling m2 method, then the flow it goes to m2 method. In m2 method, which statement is there? m1 method calling statement. Now m1 method will be executed. In m1 method, what is the statement here? Print statement, that is hello. Now the hello statement will be printed. After completion of that m1 method execution, now again come back to the m2 method, and in m2 method, what is the another statement after this calling statement? Means print statement. Then it will be print hi. So first hello will be printed and next hi will be printed, right? So what is that error? An enunciation. Yeah. So enunciations. Right. Now I close this one. Right. Hello and hi. Okay. So first what is that? M1 method is calling statement. And next M2 method print statement. So in this way we can call one method, that is one static method, from another static method. Okay. Let me try. For example, this is what? Instance method. Now it is what? instance method, but we have to pass the self parameter as the first parameter into the instance method. Then let me try. Is it possible to call the instance method from static method of the same class? Here the same class is there. In the test class only we define the two methods. M1 is instance method and M2 is static method. What I am doing here is I am trying to call that M2 from M2 method calling M1 method. Calling M1 method. But what we have to do? We have to create an object right now. So T equals to test. Now T dot M1 method because of instance method. So if you want to access the instance method, then you have to create an object, and by using that object we have to access that instance members. That may be an instance variable or that may be an instance method. See, so for the sake of different output, okay. Now see, yes, is it possible? So from static method we can call what? Instance method. We can call what? Instance method. Now let me try. From instance method, is it possible to call the static method? From instance method, is it possible to call what? Static method. Okay. So test dot M2. Now I'm going to remove these things. I save this program, and here I'm going to create an object because of through instance method. Okay, now see. Hi and hello. So what will finally, from instance method we can call the static method. From static method we can call the instance method. Both will be possible. Okay, so that is about these two programs. That means from instance method we can call static method. Similarly, from static method we can call the instance method. So this is the thing. So here what we discussing means, actually here what, calling a static method from another static method. But we discussed what, we can also call a static method from instance method, as well as we can call an instance method from static method, right? So this is the about calling methods. Next, there is one method, that is class method. Okay, class method. So what is this class method? Means we can define the class method with the @class method decorator. We can define the class method how, means with the @class method, and into that class method we have to pass one parameter or one argument, that is as first parameter, that is CLS. For example, @class method, @class method. Now def M1 and CLS. So like that one we have to pass the CLS parameter or argument as the first argument. Anyway, there are the three methods. One is class method, static method, instance method. First we will see what is the class method. Differences, right? A method bound to the class itself defined with the @class method. As if you want to define a class method, then you must and should use @class method decorator. Next, static method. If you want to define a static method, then you have to use the @static method decorator, and no need to pass any argument into the static method. Next, instance method. Whenever you define an instance method, no need to use the decorators, but there is a parameter. That parameter is a self parameter. You have to pass that self parameter as the first parameter into that instance method, right? Next, we can access through this class method, that is class attributes, and also we can modify them. Next, but static method cannot access or modify the class level or instance level attributes. That means object level variables. But instance method can access and modify the object level variables, which we can say instance variables. Next, here in the class method, what is the first argument means, as we discussed, that is CLS. And static method, no need to pass any parameter as the first parameter, that is implicit there is no parameter. Next, in instance method, the first parameter is self parameter as the first parameter. Next, usage. It is used operations to modify the interact with the class level data. That means the class method represents to access the class level variables. Coming to this one, static method, which is used for utility functions, which is for temporary related task. Now, instance method, which is commonly we are going to use to achieve or to complete the task or to perform some operations on the objects or on the object level data. Next, coming to this inheritance aspect, it can be overridden in the subclasses with the CLS referring to the subclass. Anyway, we can see these all the differences whenever we discuss in the inheritance concept of as well as the polymorphism. Because of here that no need, so it can be overridden in subclasses. That means the class method can be override in the child class. Next, the static method. The static method can be called directly through the class or subclass, but we cannot override the static methods. We can access the static method from the parent class to child class, but we cannot override the static method in the child class. Next, coming to this instance method, yes, we can override the instance method in the child classes, as well as we can access the instance method in the child class. That is the thing. So that means here the static method only one method which cannot override in the child class. So override means which the parent class functionality can be override. Our parent class methodology, our parent class logic can be override by using child class. Here that access modifier aspect. So when method needs access to a class level data, for example, if you want to access the class level data, then you can use what? That class method. And if you want to use that instance level, that is object level variables, then use instance method. Right? Next example. For example, here see calculating statistics across all objects of a class. As here static method is just formatting data and a small mathematical operations we can perform. Similarly, here written instance method. So through this instance method, we can give information or we can return that information to an instance through an attribute. Right. So this is the usefulness aspect about the class method, static method, and instance method. Right. Next, finally, so these three things for that instance method, class method, and static method. So instance method perform a set of actions on the data provided by the instance variables. That means instance methods are going to perform some actions on which data? Instance data. If you use an instance variable inside a method, then such methods are called instance method. That means that instance, if you are going to use an variable, what is an instance method means? If you are going to use an instance variable inside a method and the self parameter as the first parameter to that method, then that such methods are called instance methods. Next, class method. So class method is a class on itself which we have to pass the CLS variable, and through this class method we can access the class level data. Next, static method. So it is an isolation. That means this method does not have access instance level variables, that means object level variables and class level variables. So anyway, this is the class method, instance method, and static method. Next, so thank you. Next we will discuss.